Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Outplacement program that we're running for you this morning. Just to let you know that we'll be starting in approximately 1 minute. As you will have seen from the reception desk, we are recording today's session, and this will be sent out to you afterwards for reference as well. Okay, so good morning, everybody. It's lovely to have you all join us this morning. Welcome to your free guide to Outplacement. Let me just start off by telling you a little bit about your host today. Della Wolf is our co-owner and head of products, and she's going to actually manage most of today's session, and she'll run you through a majority of the slides that we're going to cover with you. My name's Anna. I'm going to be your host today, and I'm also going to keep an eye on the chat facility. If you do want to have any questions with us today, please just make sure that your chat, which is in the bottom right hand corner, is set to all participants, and pop any questions in there and I'll keep an eye out for them. And then alternatively, what we will do is we've got a question and answer session at the back end, and we will open up all of the mics. Just before we start, let me tell you a little bit about the Curve Group. We are a HR and recruitment solutions specialist, and we cover everything across the employee lifecycle. We work with a number of clients across various industries, from financial services, energy providers, background screening, and technology. We're a multi-award winning organisation, and some of our most recent awards are our Best Customer Focus and also our Workplace Wellbeing, which was on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce. What I'd like to do now is hand over to Della, and Della is going to talk you through the session today.
That's great. Thanks very much. And again, welcome everybody to the session today. So what we're going to be covering off is the focus of the session really is going to be on what organisations can do themselves to support employees who experience a change in their employment status. So we'll focus on what you can do yourselves to help those employees going through a career transition, but also we will explain in more detail, if you are looking for an outplacement programme, what to look for in a future supplier. So in terms of what outplacement is, it's about providing assistance to employees as they move on to the next stage of their career. And I've got a slide in a moment just to really talk about, yes, today we're absolutely focusing on a redundancy situation and how you can help somebody who is exiting out of your business. But also it can apply in other situations, and we'll talk about that in a moment as well. Services can include reviews of CVs, maybe some advice on how to look for job searches, interview training, and of course, personal coaching. So why offer outplacement? Well, one of the things we talk to potential businesses around is absolutely the benefits of outplacement are around companies offering outplacement actually say about increased productivity, profitability and morale, and actually a decrease in unwanted sick days. So instead I'd talk about when else to offer outplacement and not just around looking at this as a redundancy situation. And sometimes people have a mergers and acquisition situation, a company takes over another. That could be really good opportunities to help employees through that career transition, or around company performance and helping everyone to maybe move on to that next level of performance. Potentially it's a change of leadership or indeed restructuring. So really just looking at anything that affects an employee status in the organisation. So kind of some benefits here as to why offer outplacement. We talk about from a social side, your corporate social responsibility, making sure you look like an employer that actually cares about your employees. So there's a benefit to offering that to your employees. Social media is a big thing. We know about Glassdoor, about Google reviews, about protecting your social reputation. But absolutely, this is about doing the right thing. And in a moment, we're also going to talk about absolutely focusing on those employees that are leaving and exiting your organisation, but also about looking after your remaining employees as well. So that's supporting your corporate value and indeed preserving your culture. One of the things that really resonates with people when we talk to them through an outplacement program is the change curve. And if we think about this, maybe think about your own situation where maybe you've been through a career change at some point in your career history. And, kind of starting at that point of one, there's a change, going to happen. And, how do you feel? Kind of first bit is around that shock and surprise. It's kind of, didn't see it coming sometimes. We're kind of blindsided. And then we look at denial, there's a big pool of people, maybe it's not going to be me, or, the company's been talking for ages about moving to Alice, Mongolia, it's never going to happen. There's that denial point at that point. And then the change happens. And inevitably, everyone has this emotional low. They feel pretty rubbish. And I think the key thing around this point is this point of acceptance and moving on. It's really tough for people. It might be depending on where they are at their stage in their career. It might be they have financial concerns. There are a number of different factors that make it really easy for them to get out of that point. And I think that we spend quite a lot of time in coaching people and really getting to that point of acceptance, because actually until people get to that point of acceptance, then they can't begin to experiment with new opportunities and be ready for the challenge ahead. So we look at this as this curve coming through in one, and then absolutely 1 to 3 really are focusing very much on people looking back, but actually getting them to this point where, in kind of stages 4 and 5, then they're really starting to look forward and be more positive about what their next career options might be. So in how you can help your leaving employees, if you are in a situation where you have people that are unsettled by a change in their circumstances, then how can you help them? So I think we recommend regular face-to-face or video meetings throughout the process. The most face time you can give, the better. LinkedIn has certainly seen a real positive uptick in people using LinkedIn to really promote themselves in a very much more positive way, and seeing people sharing content, people being a really good community around looking for new roles. So you providing a LinkedIn recommendation can really help that outgoing employee, as indeed a shout out. If someone is sharing that they're looking for a new role, then you actually saying they're a good employee, you would recommend them, you'd like to work for them again, or with them again, then that absolutely can help to raise their profile. And LinkedIn is all about impressions, it's all about views they get on their page. So you can absolutely do something to help them increase their profile. As indeed is sharing their CVs with people in the network. Local jobs and benefits office still absolutely there as a support for exiting employees. You may be able to access counselling services through maybe a social benefits scheme you've got in your organisation. That may well be useful. Maybe you can access some training for them. You may have training that's actually quite easy and low cost for you to be able to offer an employee, and it's worth thinking about that to give them some new skills before they leave your organisation. And of course, the kind of basics of allowing them time off to look for a new job or arranging training for themselves, and then potentially trying them out an alternative role. And you can do that for a 4-week period just to see how that works for both parties without that affecting the redundancy programme. So, as I said, LinkedIn is definitely a tool, and my big piece of advice at the moment is, having spent more time probably on LinkedIn the last 6 months than I have previously, if I'm being honest. One of the things I would be saying to people is two things really. One is use the tools on LinkedIn. All you need to do on the help section of LinkedIn is just put in there, how do I create a great profile, or just go onto YouTube. There's masses and masses of content out there. But also people do need to be creative. So that's the second piece of advice I'd give. People that just say, I'm looking for a new job. That isn't going to get people necessarily to support them. It needs to be something a bit more interesting and creative, rather than just give me a job. So those are 2 pieces of advice that I'd be giving. So the other thing I want to look at is the fact that everyone is impacted when you go through a redundancy situation. you know, the line managers had to deal with probably numerous conversations, which have been really tough. And HR managing the change through, it's difficult for them as well. The senior leadership team potentially have made the ultimate decision, and they, you know, they might be struggling with that as well. And of course, you've got those left behind. So you might have had a pool, people that potentially were in there to be made redundant, and you've got remaining employees. So for us, it's also important about looking after those. So those line managers, giving them support. It's really important that communication is clear and consistent throughout this process. It's difficult when employees have to say goodbye to their co-workers for both parties, but there may be a fear that they're carrying around that, you know, they could be next. So helping them overcome that and be more positive about the future is also key. There may be training needs, there may be realigning objectives as people have had to change their roles, maybe taking on more responsibilities. Ultimately, if you're making people redundant, there could be some fear for the uncertainty and the stability of the company and people feeling unsettled by the change. So that reassurance is really critical. I think for us at the moment, you know, there is a majority of people are still working from home, and that can add to those feelings of isolations and connectivity with the organisation and with the leadership team as well. And then post, you know, these changes, it's really making sure you're monitoring quite closely any absences and prepare managers to look for signs of stress. But that's not just about the employees, that's also the senior leadership team looking for signs of stress within their managers who've also had to go through some very difficult conversations. And that does kind of lead on to my next point, really, around how you can help your leadership team who've had to break the news, you know, and manage the process. I think sharing the details of the organisation plan so they're really clear, it's really clear and transparent as to why we're doing this. This is the future planning, so that they've got that messaging really straight. Explaining why redundancies have been made. If they need training on how to hold difficult conversations, then absolutely now is the time to do that. And it might be that's not a formal situation. You can't anticipate that they needed that. But absolutely just being able to give them some support around how you would do it as a manager, you know, buddying up so that they can have someone they can interact with on the leadership team would absolutely help them. And potentially you might have access to an external support network as well, letting them know it is all going to get emotional and letting everyone kind of have a moment they can vent. And then, you know, this isn't a point in time when we stop and say, right, this has happened, these people have gone, and now we're moving on. There is a continuous communication after downsizing that, of course, needs to happen. So if you are looking to maybe more formally look at how you can offer outplacement, I'm going to spend the next part of the session looking at programme content that we would expect to be in an outplacement programme. Obviously, it's something that we do offer ourselves. And one of the things that we have committed to recently is we do a kind of our basic entry outplacement course is a full day course, which just isn't feasible in the current environment. So what we have done is broken that into 2 half days, and they are both sessions are very interactive. We have polling, we have whiteboard sessions, you know, we're able to do breakout rooms. It's very much, you know, around this interactive session that we give. So if you are looking now to, you know, to formalise how you offer outplacement, then it's definitely, you know, worthwhile asking organisations how they've adapted to offering outplacement services in the current environment. So what you'd expect to see in programme content, you know, there would be definitely the first part of any outplacement programme needs to be participants need to have the opportunity to reflect on kind of what's happened, and, you know, hopefully you're kind of moving them through that change curve and starting to be more positive, but accepting that on that first session that might well not be the case. Then taking stock. One of the things that I think is always really interesting when you go through an outplacement programme is just getting people to realise how much they've delivered in their career. You know, it does take some time to break that down, and we've got some really good techniques as to how we get people to think sometimes more laterally around what they've achieved in their career to date. then once you've kind of got that right, I know where I am, you know, I know what I'm good at, actually then that's the point when we can look at opportunities and options for them. How do they market themselves? What are the job markets? I'm going to talk about that in a moment. Looking at networks and contacts, getting them prepared for interviews, and certainly in the sessions we're running most recently, it's very much around the world of video interviewing, and you know, people aren't quite used to that. So spending really some time in how do you get yourself across in a way that is really positive when maybe you've always relied on that face-to-face interaction. And then each time we do a session, very much putting some onus on individuals taking away their own actions and doing activity before coming back to the next session. So there'll be kind of CVs cover off, looking at their personal brand. We do lots of elevator pitches and making sure that they're really confident in describing themselves in a very succinct, positive way. So that creates the best personal impact, looking at which jobs that they should be targeting now, and indeed companies, overall career objectives, and the key other one is networking. So what we do in terms of approach is look at how to respond to vacancy adverts and share some top tips on the world and how that's changed in terms of vacancies, adverts, and how that's managed through, how to handle recruitment companies, talk to people about how you know, how to do interviews, different assessments that people might find in different companies, and how ultimately to choose the right job for you. So there are a number of ways to access what we call the visible job market, and I'm going to talk in a moment about the hidden one as well. But there's online adverts, which, you know, we're all quite comfortable with now. There's also setting up job alerts on all the relevant job boards so that you do actually get job alerts that come to you in your inbox every day, which is always quite nice. And then how to manage recruiters and how to get the best out of a relationship with a recruitment agency or an internal recruitment partner. So one of the things that is quite key when people are job hunting is to absolutely look at your reactive strategy, which is, you know, the job advert things into your inbox, and obviously you're to apply for that if it's appropriate. Doing the trawl every day, so if any new jobs have come up on LinkedIn or what type of jobs or wherever else people may be focusing their attention. I always talk to participants on our Outplacement programs and saying that can be quite exhausting if that's your only activity, because it is, by the very nature of it, reactive. So you do need to balance that with some proactive activity, what we call the hidden market. And that's around really looking at what is it you want to do next. Who do you know in your network? How do you expand your network? How do you approach companies directly to secure your new role? And ideally, when you're looking at a job search strategy, you need to absolutely invest time in both. Some days just to stop the madness setting in, but absolutely this is a proven strategy as to how you find the right next role for you. And we talk about the ABC of networking, but apply that to looking for a new role. So we talk about getting them to think about the elevator pitch, talking about what is it they want to do next and being quite succinct. So you kind of can't get to this point until they've actually gone through that review of what they're good at, review of what they want to do next, what skills have they got that are transferable, and at the point when they can succinctly explain what they're looking for, then they're ready to start talking to people about that. So we talk about your A contacts. These are people you've already got rapport with that you can phone up and say, I am thinking of pursuing a role in this type of company, and this is the type of role I want. Great. What you're looking for those people to do is then refer you to your B contacts. And these people really are not the people that necessarily will get you the job in that company, but they may be someone that works for that type of business or has moved from one role to the other that's quite relevant to what you're looking for next. So you're looking at those people to say, right, give me some information. So information gathering to further refine your objective and focus. So it might be by talking to someone, you rule that out completely, or it might be just piques your interest a bit more and you want to find more information. So they will then refer you to other B contacts. So you could do the same thing with information gather, refine, focus, or They may then introduce you to C contacts, which is the ultimate, and they're the people that can make recruitment decisions. They could potentially even create jobs if you're the right candidate, and of course they can refer you to other C contacts. So we talk about this as a way of, managing your own network, but really seeing this as a process where you're expanding, and investing some time every day into doing that. So in summary, if you were looking to outsource your outplacement, why do that? I think for us, it's around having an unbiased, impartial contact. Yes, you absolutely can do that yourself. There is some advantages, and hopefully today you've seen some of the top tips that you can do. Everyone can help with LinkedIn, everyone can do a CV review, everyone knows somebody, and we should be able to create time in our diary just to give someone that interactive time. So absolutely you can do that. The challenge is just exactly that, is the challenge, and it's not impartial. There are tools, methodologies that outplacement providers will have and use and be able to access. Employees recognise, so we've talked about that social responsibility and recognising that you are investing as a final act almost in your relationship with that employee to support them. Exits are managed professionally. We've had some situations where we have actually managed to turn people around. This negative feelings, if people are at that 3, at that really emotional low point, and seeing it as very much, they've taken it quite personally. Actually, outplacement could really help them see that, there was a bigger picture. It was about the role, it was about the team, it was about the company performance. It wasn't about them as an individual. So that absolutely could help. I think, we would like to think that by investing time in your employees and going through a structure program, they may well be able to gain new employment quickly and therefore potentially recommend your business. It's that retention piece around remaining employees. They're seeing that you are doing the right thing and you're caring about your employees. So they feel more positive about the business going forward. Obviously, programs can be tailored. I've talked about the program that we do, which is now just 2 half-days, which is our entry-level program. But of course, if there's an executive, you can do one-to-one coaching over a 6-month period. Those are some of the programs that we also run as well. And of course, if you've got someone else focusing on looking after those exiting employees, you as a leadership team can continue to focus on the restructure and of course the core activities. So that's really why we would say there's some real value in looking at outsourcing outplacement if your company is going through a period of transition. So for me, that sort of concludes the overview we had on what you can do now for your employees, but also the potential if you wanted to look at outsourcing. I'm just going to bring Anna back in now and just to talk about just a quick piece around what our clients say or our participants say about us.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Stella. So what I'd like to just bring out is what our candidates have said. So as Stella has alluded to, we've run quite a few of these programs, especially more so over kind of weeks and months. And what was lovely is this piece of feedback that we've got. So you can read it for yourself, but I think it's beautiful to say, I was not expecting to be made redundant and it took me by surprise. That's how most people feel. The Curve Group provided advice and guidance, including updating my CV and LinkedIn profile and on competency interviews. So when the jobs started coming into me, rather than me searching for them, this was a huge confidence boost. So it really does show how important this is and what a difference it can make to individuals. What we'd like to do now is just see whether or not there are any questions that you've got. So we can do this by either using the chat facility that we spoke about, or alternatively, we can open up the mic. So I'm just going to open up the mics. Don't be shy. We will leave it for a few minutes and just see if anyone's got any. If not, then please don't worry. We will move on as well. So the mics are now open, so please feel free to join in and talk if there are any questions. So Della, it's all very quiet at the moment, so you may want to move forward. That's absolutely fine.
Fine, good, that's fine. No, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity there, Anna. So just finally, on our outplacement today, on our webinar today, we just wanted to draw your attention to our next webinar that's coming up, all about employment contracts and HR policies. So that's the next one coming up on the 24th of November at the same time as 11:30. And also our previous webinar was on managing redundancies. You can watch that by just logging into or just popping into our group website. And that's free to watch now. So, and as Anna said, we're recording this as well. So if you have any colleagues that you feel would benefit, then that will also be available on our website as well, and then you can download that. And lastly, just a little bit of a plug around our HR business rescue plan, helping you make informed strategic workforce decisions. Clearly, we've launched it fairly recently in light of the current circumstances, but we're finding clients really benefiting from a little fixed price of £850 just to have a look at what's currently going on in the business. That's it from us today. Hopefully you found the session really valuable, and we really thank you for your participation today, and I'll wish you all goodbye and have a great rest of the day. Thank you very much.